Let's head over to Gaza.
Yeah, head
John, what
over
can you
to
tell us?
Gaza, where Israel says that 2024 is the year of warfare in Gaza. We're just going to show you some maps because we talk a lot about Gaza, but we don't. It's really difficult. I want to just say to viewers, it's very difficult to find maps of Gaza that aren't either just maps like this. This is bomb damage. This is what 30,000 airstrikes looks like, plus tank shelling in the hundreds of thousands. That's northern Gaza that you're seeing with the red splotches, and Israel's promising to do to the south what they did to the north with that map. And then the next map, if we could show here, Tamara, is this shows the Israeli tank movements in the area, which overlap considerably with the bomb damage map because they preface their invasion by showing by bombing the leads for all of their armored vehicles. And so the map with the armored vehicles movements shows that there's considerable overlap with the bomb damage that you can see. So Israel's pulverizing the buildings, people's lives, before they're even moving in with their armor to continue the fight. And then the next map is the population density, that just so people understand what we're looking at here. The war in the north is what we reported on from well, we're going to continue to report on it today, but that we've been reporting on since November. The population concentrations in Gaza are significant in the populated areas, but you can see by that map that there's considerable space in between the areas where there's concentrations of population. And so they focused their tanks, as Ahmed was saying. People don't know where their tanks are in the north right now because they've largely pulled them back to the buffer zone areas and are just carrying out raids from there, which is what they're promising to do for the year 2024. Not sure how that's going to work out for them, considering that the longer they're in these positions, the more ability the resistance is able to hit them. So they cut across the Gaza Strip. And we remember early on those shows when Israel was bragging about how they made it to the sea and how they cut off Gaza. You can see from this population map that that's not a hard thing to do. They just drove through empty space, which their settlements had previously been in order to cut the Gaza Strip up like this. The settlements were built that way, purposefully, militarily built to occupy territory, to split up the continuity of the Palestinian population centers. So just to give you an idea, for now we're moving into Deir Balah. That's in the central area. These are the central camps, refugee camps, in the middle area, as people call it. And that's where the thrust of Israel's invasion is right now. They're in Barej.
And can I just say, sorry to interrupt you, John, that several of our contributors in that area have had to evacuate their homes in recent days, particularly from in and around Maghazi camp and Deir al-Balah, and we're doing our best to stay in touch with them. But they are reporting really horrifying conditions. All of Maghazi camp was ordered to evacuate, and some of them have moved to Deir al-Balah and others to Rafah, which is becoming increasingly crowded and has not yet been, it's been targeted by airstrikes, but not yet by much Israeli ground activity. But I just wanted to point out that these things we're seeing on the map, of course we know it, but they're affecting people that we know and are in touch with and upending their lives in horrifying
because that's
ways.
where Israel told people to go, right? Wadi Gaza is marked on that map there. You can see the population concentrations just below there. They told people to go there, and now they're attacking those places. And as Ahmed described, people have been moving. People didn't just move from their house to these new makeshift refugee camps. They've moved 4 and 5 times during this war. I mean, some families, some of my friends have moved a dozen times. And that's, I'm sure, the same with a lot of people. They're constantly on the move trying to protect their lives against these 30,000 airstrikes and 100,000 artillery shells that the Americans gave to the Israelis to drop on the people of Gaza. So let's go take a look at some of these videos here. We'll start with the video in the north, number 3. This is 𝐓𝐡𝐞 fighting on the edges of Gaza City, which has a lot of the themes that we've talked about before, moving through walls. Here we have multiple shooters with elevated shooting positions. 𝐓𝐡𝐞's noting that they have multiple shooters here with a tank unit on the street down below. Elevated shooting positions, which are more dangerous for the tanks. And on the video, we're seeing the tanks be hit from the upper window by both, it appears, by both of the shooters. This is using an attack tunnel that it will be more and more common if this third phase that Israel's calling it is actually what Maureen talked about in her article. If it actually is a shift in the way that Israel carries out this war, the way that Israel says they're going to do is draw down their combat. They're going to put their reserve soldiers back into the economy because their economy is flagging. They're going to carry out targeted raids from the buffer zone. And so their tanks are going to remain inside of the Gaza Strip. And this just puts them in position, as we see in this video here. We're watching an attack tunnel be used to access the buffer zone, to access the Israeli armored vehicles. Also, what we're seeing here in these videos increasingly are more, I don't want to say more skilled, but more skilled fighters, more prepared fighters. We're starting to see tactical gear, as we see in this video, starting to come out, which I think is just a clue, which was not surprising, that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 didn't just throw all of their best forces at the pointy end of the spear of the Israeli invasion, but are actually going to wait until they settle in and carry out these more dynamic types of attacks that have been going on this week. Like 𝐓𝐡𝐞 just released, since we last saw you folks, our audience out there, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 released numbers saying that they had hit 42 Israeli armored vehicles, killed 22 soldiers, which seems like a very reasonable number. Israel's still hiding their casualties considerably on 52 operations that include snipers and these Yasin's RPGs, their homemade RPGs, ambushes, they're booby trapping tunnels. They're blowing up houses with troop positions inside them. They blew up 4 tunnel entrances. They just released a video today that we'll have on the show for you next time, of them blowing up a tunnel entrance with Israeli soldiers. They're setting up minefields because they have time and access now to set up minefields. We're starting to see surface-to-air missiles, man-portable surface-to-air missiles being fired at helicopters, which is something that we've been wondering about. It seems pretty clear that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is not targeting medical evacuations out of Gaza, which is something interesting, and I guess seems to be a principled position, because it seems like these helicopters are within reach of these fighters. And so what we're seeing here is that's what the tanks look like when they're in the buffer zone. They're outside of the city area. They're in this agricultural area. And they're able to be monitored from the high points inside the Gaza Strip that the Palestinians still have, even though all of these buildings have been destroyed. And, you know, like the Washington Post described this war as the most destructive war. And their examples were Dresden from World War II and Germany. They don't send their social media reporter on that to try to figure out why that is happening and being justified. And as Ahmed said, also gleefully supported by genocide supporters in the West, who are supported by the media that they're getting. That's not detailing what's happening. It's not that we're not talking in the media about the systematic destruction of hospitals and what that looks like, the systematic destruction of schools. And universities, like he was talking about. And so what we're seeing here is after this video, Tamara, can you show that New York Times headline? Because I just want to show, while we're watching these videos of the North, which clearly show skilled fighters able to reach the Israelis constantly. They're releasing these videos every day. These videos that I'm showing you have all been released since you last saw us on this show. I'm not saving up the best. These are just, I sort through them, but these are all from the days since we last saw you, which clearly shows that Israel does not have dismantled Hamas's military capabilities in northern Gaza. So the New York Times abides by Israel's censor, downplaying the most significant attack against Israeli military infrastructure by Hezbollah in the north, downplaying that, calling it symbolic and a tiny, what did they say, small military base. And then on the other hand, regurgitating these headlines that I want to save for all of time that say Israel says it dismantled Hamas's military capabilities in northern Gaza, which is clearly ridiculous. The pace of the resistance hasn't slowed at all. Israel's had more than 1,000 armored vehicles targeted. We've seen on camera more than 300 of them hit on camera. We've seen them being towed away. And in these videos that I'll show you coming, you'll see destruction of tanks. So maybe we could go to number 4 tomorrow of 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 because it's not just Hamas's. You don't need to just dismantle Hamas, which is not what's happening. You also need to do that with all of the other armed faction. And here's 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 operating in Tufa and Daraj, which is the area outside the old city of Gaza, in Gaza City. So they're still fighting in these areas and clearly have no control over these areas. The Institute for the Study of War said that 3 Qassam battalions are combat ineffective out of 40,000 fighters. So 3 out of 40 battalions.
Well, if I'm not wrong, John, the Institute for the Study of the War is the same neocon organization that kept telling us that Ukraine was winning.
Yes, well, they're not telling us that Israel's winning because 3 battalions out of 40 is not for a genocide that, I mean, we're saying 23,000. The numbers of dead in Gaza are far higher than that. And we know that. We know there's people under the rubble. We know that because the hospitals have been collapsed, people aren't able to report on the casualties. They're just unable to keep those kind of counting statistics up. And so we're watching a genocide that's supported in huge sectors of the West, and even their propaganda outlets, their think tanks that they invest all this money in, are saying that only 3 of the battalions are combat ineffective. And combat ineffective is just a descriptor that says that you are fighting as a guerrilla force, which is what the Qassam brigades are anyway. And it's a temporary condition because you can reconstitute yourself by putting your fighters from different brigades and battalions into the ones that have been degraded in some way. So we're clearly seeing that that's not the case. And here we're seeing a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 video with them hitting 4 or 5 tanks in the north, in the areas that Israel is saying that they control. And if we go to the next one tomorrow after this, Qassam is also fighting in this area here. And we're going to watch them here use a Yassin shooter is going to use a ladder here to climb up and get over the fence to hit an Israeli engineering troop carrier here that we can see successfully is hit. And they're going to show in this video the smoking, smoldering ruins of the armored personnel carrier, which has a crew of 9 in it. So somehow they had to evacuate that crew.
I believe in that video, we don't have the sound on, but if I recall correctly, John, there's actually a voiceover from Qassam that says that they watched that troop carrier burning, and I think they said that in 24 hours there was no attempt to rescue.
Yeah, that is that video. They watched it burn for the whole day. So, and again, you're seeing tactical gear being used here. You're starting to see these forces. These are Israelis that we're watching right now outside of their D9 bulldozer that they use to destroy what's left of the houses and pile them up in ways to try to defend their forces. But what we're watching right now for the listeners, we're watching Qassam be literally right across the street from this force, monitoring them from the window, hitting them from across the street. This is not spray and pray stuff. This is very close quarters combat. And here we have a fighter checks his watch, elevated shooting position from a building that's
The
right in
watch
front of the
checking,
Israeli tank. And that's an
uh,
Israeli, that's a Merkava 4.5. That's a brand new tank that's in service there, being hit, and its active protection system not showing. And now they're showing captured gear from that same those same attacks. So
John,
significant qualitative increase in military operations, both in the north and here in northern Gaza.
John, that video, I think it's going to keep running. At first, when I saw that fighter check his watch, it didn't make any sense. But the Israelis, I think it was the Israelis, released a still photo which they had captured or found somewhere of Mohammed Deif, the commander-in-chief of he's actually called the chief of staff of the Palestinian resistance, and has become a mythical figure. And they released this photo of him where he looks like he's on a picnic or something, and he's looking at his watch like that. So do you think that people are correct when they're saying that this video is a reference to that it's sort of mocking the Israelis and again showing how aware the Qassam fighters are of what is happening in the outside world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very, very possible. And showing that photo of Mohammed Adef is that photo itself. Israel has said that he had lost 3 of his 4 arms and legs, and that the only photo of him that they show was like from his school years, like when he was young. And now they're showing they released that photo just the other day. So yes, I think we're seeing the interplay between information operations on the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, and clearly showing that they have command and control, putting lie to that New York Times headline and to the Israeli propaganda. Because again, referring to Ahmed, he's saying that their families aren't able to communicate with their children who are in different places in the Gaza Strip. But the fighters are apparently have the ability to interact with international news media and the Israeli army, which just shows that there's nothing like command and control collapsing, despite the war crimes that have been carried out all throughout the Gaza Strip. So we're
We
watching a
actually have
genocide
that
that's being
photo.
justified this way.
We can throw it up, Tamara. I just dropped that tweet from Israel I-24 News with the photo of Mohammed Deif, if you would like to put it up. Yeah, there you go. So that photo was released by Israel. And then I think the very same day or the next day, that Qassam video comes out where the fighter looks at his watch, and it seems to be a mocking reference to this photo in terms of telling the Israelis, you know.
Yeah, and just to say, we know from October 7th that Qassam also has the speed of each of the armored vehicles. They knew on the raid on October 7th how long they had at each spot, at each military spot, because they had calculated the distance and the speed of each type of vehicle, the Hummer versus the armored vehicle versus the tank. So we know that they have this kind of detailed information. That it's possible that they're also timing them, but I think I think we're looking at, I think the answer to the question could very well be right here. And we're going to have a decade of documentaries where we're going to ask people these questions and find out. But the nuance and sophistication of the information operations they seem to almost be increasing as the war goes on. There's nothing indicating degrading of this kind of information.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.